She took down the most hated man on the internet. Her name is Charlotte Laws. She's our guest on this episode of 1 Degree of Scandalous with the one and only Kato Kalin. I'm Tom Zenner.
I'm so glad I could make it here today. Well, you know what, Tom? There's so much going on, and I know it's 2024, and we are gonna. Let's face it, this show is going to be. It just keeps growing and growing, and I think 2024 is the year for us.
I know it is. I've always said it's a year of Kato. Now it's here. Now we got to start living up to it. 4 documentaries Kato Kalin's going to be in this year. Oh, I know I could book that guest. You. I mean, that'll be fun. Talk about some of the behind-the-scenes stories. You know, when you get these documentary stars, because, you know, you watch these things, and they're so well-produced. And, Kato, you've been in some. You're going to be in 4 huge ones this year because it's the 30-year anniversary of the OJ saga. But all you see is this slick editing and the production value, but it's work behind the scenes, right? I mean, you're there for hours and hours and hours.
Oh yeah. It's long. It's sit downs for at least 6 hours. Mm-hmm. So, and you know, you just kind of keep the energy up, and you kind of rehash and everything. You go, oh, do I want to be here? I'll do it because it's an interesting story. So many people, you have to make it feel like it's the first time you've done the interviews. But
well, that's part of being
so
a pro,
much more.
Right?
It's so much more that's going on for you and for me. The Varsity Blues, of course, your book coming out, and boy, we talked about other shows that are be coming up. I rewatched Benita Alexander's story. It's The Bad Surgeon.
Yep.
It's just so compelling. I tell everybody to watch it. And,
so good, and she's going to be on the show next week.
And the one that I just watched, of course, with Charlotte in it, Charlotte Laws, and I can't wait to meet her.
You know, it's cool because, you know, as I watched that thing, it was a 3-parter, and you could tell she had some dramatic lines in there, like some one-liners that just stood by themselves. Are you thinking when you're being interviewed, let me give you something good here that's going to resonate. Let me really look at the camera. Let me slow my delivery. Have you thought of being extra dramatic on some of your responses? It's almost human nature that you would do that.
I think for me, I think it just comes out as an ad lib or whatever. It's the person who I am. It comes out, and it's all up to the interview and the question. If I feel like a key word coming up, I have a line that will work on something. But definitely.
It's funny because you can manipulate the media, right? Everybody knows that if you have I worked in the media for so long, so I'll one quick story. We were in Santa Barbara, me and Shonda. We were probably only married a year or so. This is like 2004, maybe 2005. And we're just walking in downtown Santa Barbara, and I see a news crew. And they're like doing some interview in downtown Santa Barbara. And I go, Shonda, I go, look, hey, I bet I can get on the 6 o'clock and 10 o'clock news tonight. I bet I can. She goes, wow. I go, watch. I walk up to him. I go, hey, what you guys doing? You're doing some interviews? Yeah. They go, we're talking about auto insurance rates going up in Colorado. What? Oh, my God. Yeah, man, that's blown me away. So I tempted them to interview me, and they did. They go, would you say something? I go, yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. So they asked me one question, and I go off, and I'm going, yeah, you know what? I'm visiting from Arizona, but I come out here often. I have a daughter here. And when I find out that these insurance companies can indiscriminately just raise these rates, it scares me. It scares me. That's what I did. Yeah. We're back in the hotel getting ready that night. And coming up on the 6 o'clock news during the tease, it scares me. It scares me. I didn't even know what the hell I was saying.
But you know what the word.
I knew what they wanted to hear.
Exactly, and what the lead-in people are going to want to hear it.
It scares me.
Yeah.
It scares me. All right. You look good, man. You look good. You look lean and mean.
Well, you know, I was just going to tell you what my favorite, you've called auto insurance before, and my favorite quote, of course, in auto insurance is a stitch in time. No, that's when you know you've got a bad insurance agent right there. Those are bad quotes. Thank you, Jeff. Jeff, our producer's going, is the show over yet?
Yeah, it is.
No, it just started, Jeff. It's our intro.
Sit back
for
and get
goodness
comfortable.
sakes. Jeff, give us a break, man.
Jeff, you're going to love this guest. What do you say we get to it?
Let's do it.
All right. Without further ado, quick break, and we are back with Charlotte Laws. All right, Kato, it is time. Let's bring her in. Charlotte Laws. I know a lot of people have probably seen the documentary. When we get into your history and your exciting life, Charlotte, I think people are going to be blown away. You've lived 10 lifetimes, okay? All of it is, or most of it at least, is exciting. A lot of it is impactful. But thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you.
And I'm just glad that I'm not the most hated man on the internet. I'm happy just from that. I just want to be loved. I just want to be loved, Tom.
Kato's the most hated man on the internet in Milwaukee when it's baseball season with the Brewers. Brewers.
Baseball or football with the Packers. That's true. I'll
a little
take credit
rough
for
on
that.
them.
That's it for sports. That's it. I'm actually wearing a jock and a cup now, just in case a game breaks out with Charlotte.
Even Bob Uecker hates Cato. That's not good. No.
Bob's my buddy. Bob, my dad coached Bob back in the day.
Cato and Bob Uecker. That would be the tandem. We got to get him on the podcast. But Charlotte, welcome. Thank you very much. Man, that was it was a great podcast. So impactful, 3-parter. You were well known because you're an author. You've done a lot of high profile things. You've had a very interesting life like we're going to talk about. But how has your profile changed? I'm curious, after you appear on a big time Netflix doc like that, are you being recognized all over? Or has it changed your profile a little bit?
Well, I thought they did a very good job of the documentary. So I've certainly received a lot of love and outpouring of positive comments from people all over the world. So, and I am getting emails and messages from people in other countries. So it's definitely, it was definitely a positive experience doing this show. And I feel like it impacted, the world a little bit. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, I on the documentary, you've helped over 40 people. I'm sure from that, it's many, many, many more. And you are sort of the go-to person, and the ambition and your indefatigable of just pursuing this. I was blown away that. First of all, this Hunter Moore, if you got to watch the documentary, Hunter Moore is the most hated man on the internet, and he should never screw around with someone whose last name ends in laws. So she's like the law of everything. And how you went after him, and you were going to go through the whole story, but what was your initial reaction of your daughter saying to you, "Mom, I'm nude on the internet"? Before you knew anything about the story, were you upset with her, and then you found out more and more? And how that? Just tell me how that was for you as a mom.
Well, I believed her when she said she had never sent it to anyone. And I could kind of feel what it would be like to have this happen. And so I was completely empathetic. I was freaked out. I felt like it needed to come down immediately because everyone knows what happens with the internet. Things proliferate, they don't go away, especially if they're topless pictures. And so I kind of felt like I had to jump into action and do something to help her because she was in tears. She was distraught. She felt violated. And I knew she didn't have the ability to do it herself, to fight for herself.
Yeah. And you know what? That is a very apt description for Hunter Moore, the most hated man on the internet. And, when you see that title, you're wondering who it is. And then when you watch the documentary, you understand he earned it. This guy is a despicable piece of crap. And he reveled in it. And it wasn't so much that he was posting these pictures, right, which is horrible, and hacking into people's computers and phones to get these photos illegally. But then he would open it up for comments and take it 10 times worse by people being able to comment on people's appearances. If it's not bad enough, I mean, if the trolls aren't getting you and destroying your life, man, they make sure they are. And he had this following. He was almost like this god to some of these people, and they just reveled in his attention, and it just made it worse. And you really get an impact and an idea of just how low life some people are. Just how you can't imagine people can be that cruel, that heartless, that disgusting, that vile.
Well, I tell you, and I got to relate to this only because I went through a beating during the trial, even after trial, because you could have 100 good things about you, but one person does something bad. That's the one you remember. That's the one that affects you. And for your daughter and for yourself, when you hear it about yourself, that gets in your mind and you think everybody saw that. And it's very tough to live. And I'm full of energy and positive, but I would find myself being down and just depressed about I don't even know this person. Why is there so much hate? And this guy opening up the comments, like Tom said, he kind of opened it up to people to make, I think part of his goal was to make that person feel miserable. And he didn't care at all because he didn't see anybody as a human. He just looked at dollar signs.
Yeah, he wanted to drive people to suicide if he could. Hunter Moore had 30 million page views per month. He had 600,000 followers on Twitter. And the goal was to ruin lives. It was to drive people to suicide. It was to send out, all his followers would try to send the photos out to the victim's family members, to the employer. I mean, it was really just horrid what they did.
Yeah, in saying that, I know when you say suicide, I can see how someone could actually be so depressed if they're not, that strong.
Sure. One girl tried. Nursing student from Buffalo tried in the documentary.
So that was it. Yeah. So,
and I'm sure there were many more, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is.
There have been a couple. couple of women actually did kill themselves over revenge porn. Probably more than two, but two of them that I know of specifically.
And
So yeah, it's
did that become a lawsuit with anybody? Was did someone
no,
try
it
to?
wasn't this particular website. It was
Yeah.
somebody else. It was a
Oh,
different situation,
Right.
but there have been people around the world, and there was a person in Canada and a person in California who did
Yep.
kill themselves, young women.
ah,
And 93% of victims suffer severe emotional distress,
right.
and 51% contemplate suicide. So it really is a very serious thing, and that's why,
Sure.
it's important to have legislation and do what we can to protect
Well, and let's
victims.
take it a step further, because this is really at the beginning. The time frame is kind of when revenge porn, if that's even the correct term for this, I'm not sure that it is. It's what Netflix went with, but this is when people are just starting to learn about it. So this is 2012 timeline, 2013, something like that. And these photos are getting out there, and it's just crazy. And for the backstory, so this guy, this Hunter Moore, is just a grade A creep. And I advise everybody to go watch the documentary after you watch this, because you're going to want to. And this thing just took off for him, right? Who knows how he started or what got the first traction for him. He claims it was a spurned or an ex-lover, ex-girlfriend, and then he took it from there and posted her photos.
While you're saying that, did you not think while you're watching of sort of like Girls Gone Wild? I'm not saying that's it, but don't you think that's a thought of how much money someone else made from something where it's, how can I make money off?
Well, I'm sure that was his motivation, right?
Yeah.
And maybe he got the motivation from that. But the one was selling DVDs. He was trying to make money on the internet. And then the way Charlotte, got into the story is her daughter Kayla, unsuspectingly, unwittingly, unwillingly, her photos ended up on the site.
Right.
And here's the craziest thing about it: she had never shared them with anybody. She took them on her own in the privacy of her own home. So when she told you, and by the way, Charlotte, the fact that your daughter was involved was the worst thing that happened to Hunter, right? Because it got you involved, right? And I love how you did it too, because you just made no qualms about it. You didn't judge your daughter. Maybe you did privately, and you had to ask her a few questions that maybe
No.
a mother. Okay, fine, you were in. Was it on from the get-go? Did you go to the website, look at it, and it just boil your blood, and you said, "I'm coming"?
I looked at the website immediately when she was on the phone with me telling me about it, and I had never heard of revenge porn, which we now say that it's image-based sexual abuse or non-consensual pornography. Those are the terms that are usually used now. And what happened was my daughter had a friend who also ended up topless on that site, and we talked to the friend, and the friend had never sent it to anyone except her husband, and he had been hacked. And that's when I realized there was probably a hacking scheme. And there was no one else to help. I mean, attorneys didn't know anything about it. It was a new thing, as you said. It was like, I got to do it or no one else is going to do this. And so I just kind of had to dig in and kind of devote my life for a while to trying to get my daughter's picture down, getting other victims down, and getting this whole website down.
I have a two-part question for this one. First of all, can you explain? I don't know how is it hacked when your daughter's only has it in her. She didn't share with anybody. So I don't understand I think his name was Evans, his last name,
Charlie Evans.
Charlie Evans was also involved. And that's one question. How does Charlie Evans get access to hacking that? And did you ever, during this whole process, say, boy, this is taking so long. I kind of give up. I think this Hunter Moore is going to win. Or did you just say, no, it made you stronger? Because it went on for a while.
Well, it went on for a very long time, and persistence is the key to success for anything you do. So, and I'm that kind of a person who just doesn't believe in giving up.
Right.
But my daughter had taken the pictures in her room with her phone, and she wanted to save them. So she sent them to her email to save them. He hacked into her email, into her Gmail account. And back then, they didn't have as much security as they do today. And so there was some kind of it was almost like a social engineering thing where the hacker, Charlie, would send he would get a control of people's Facebook pages, then try to contact their friends and get like a new code sent from Gmail and say, and pretend to be one of the friends.
Got it.
And then you would give him the code and then he would get in. It was that kind of a thing. That's
So
how they hacked it.
Okay, so he's hacking someone. He knows that someone's attractive. So it's not just a random thing. He's attacking someone. It's like, okay, this is a really pretty girl. I'm going to attack this one, and then her friend, and this friend. And it went on that way.
Yeah, I think he was randomly doing it, though. I mean, he started out hacking his own friends, his own Facebook friends, and he got into their accounts, got into their emails, stole their photos. In fact, he abused them by putting their photos up, and then he
I,
would go to friends of friends on Facebook, and then friends of those friends, and
you know,
he got into my daughter's best friend's account on Facebook, and then then he got into her stuff. But I think it was just random. He would just rifle through looking for nude pictures,
right.
whoever he could find, then he would post them.
Well, the show should have been called The Most Hated Men, because that's
Yeah,
disgusting.
but he's the worst. He is by far the worst. Now, Charlie's bad too. He got convicted as well. But yeah, Hunter reveled in it though. That was the
Yeah.
problem, and it was like adding fuel to the fire to him. And then this battle escalated, and it went on and on. And as you can imagine, as Charlotte put the heat on this creep,
Right.
he was coming back. And then he's got this army of sycophants around him that will do anything he says, and they just want to please him, even though they don't even know him. They probably have no interaction other than maybe
Right.
snorting some coke with him once in a while at a party they invited him to that they had no reason being at. So then your life become a lot more difficult. But you already were all in on this. So, you got to walk us through a little bit about, what they did to you. Because they were relentless, they were cruel, and they were threatened. So he was coming after you.
Yeah, his followers, they would say to him, "We will kill for you, father." And they were using Charles Manson language. So he was father, they were the children, the family is what the whole group was called. And so, yeah, they started coming after me because I was going after the website and trying to get my daughter's picture down. And so they saw me as the enemy. So I got computer viruses. I got death threats all the time. I even had a stalker at my house. There were a lot of things not in the documentary, and the stalker they left out. So it was really ratcheted up. I had to buy gate locks for my gates, and I was very afraid that, someone could come into my house or into my yard. And
Well,
so
that
it
has to be
became
on your mind
crazy.
all the time.
Did you
right?
purchase
never
a
know.
gun? Yeah. Did you get a gun, or did you already had one at the house?
No, I didn't get a gun.
Yeah.
right.
No, but we had
because
rods.
that's scary
We had
because-
these rods under our bed.
But I agree. I mean, it's scary. I went through something with that with stalkers, but I just, I just think when they know where you live, that's just such a threat because you don't know, and your phone rings or a knock on the door. You just live on the, like eggshells. So it's really difficult. And for what you've gone through and your daughter's gone through, your family went through, it's amazing, a testament of who you are. And I think you really became a hero on this. I guess we'll call it revenge porn. That you're sort of like the poster woman for this whole, of saving other people from this happening.
Well, she's done a lot since then too, and there's legislation that's been written up because of this. Because the problem didn't go away. Yeah, the story got ended, and maybe you took care of Hunter, but it's not like that problem has gone away, and it's probably even gotten way worse since then. So it's
there's
great that
supposedly 3,000. There's supposedly 3,000 revenge porn websites in the world, according to The Economist. And yeah, the laws are very important because for some reason these perps who tend to be young guys, like 20 to 30 years old, living at home with their parents in their basement, in their parents' basement, don't have jobs, but they're very afraid of going to jail. They're not afraid of civil suits because they have no assets, but they are afraid of law enforcement. And so that's why the laws are very important, and we still don't have a federal law in the United States, unfortunately.
they're probably
We've been
all
pushing
petrified.
for it for
no
years.
question. There's a whole nother interesting angle to this story too. It's her whole family, Charlotte's whole family, right? Her daughter was involved because of the photos, and her husband's an attorney. And obviously the Netflix documentary made it seem like your husband Charles was kind of in the background for a little while, didn't want to get involved, or maybe you didn't want him involved, and you are a bulldog, it didn't slow you down. So I'm not sure how much you communicated to him as far as the progress you were making, or maybe some of the threats you were under. But then after a while, he did get involved. And you needed a lawyer to kind of light that fuse, to take this to the next level, to actually put some real fear into Hunter. So describe the timeline of when your husband got involved and what his marching orders were from you.
Well, I tried to get him involved from the beginning, pretty much. I mean, at the very beginning, my daughter didn't want him to know because she was so embarrassed. She didn't want anyone to know that she had a topless picture online. But eventually, I convinced her that a legal letter might help. And my husband didn't even want to do the legal letter. So we ended up in a lot of fights over this issue. Finally, he did the legal letter, and I sent it over there. Did nothing. And I had conversations with Hunter's attorney, his publicist, his advertisers. I was going at every angle to try to get my daughter's picture down. In fact, I tried to call Hunter's mother at one point because I thought if maybe she could do something. And so time passed, and then my husband was just super fed up with the whole thing. I mean, that's all I was doing. I had canceled everything else in my life. And he just got really fed up that this was going on and that we were getting death threats, and that was upsetting to him. And so he finally just had this conversation with Hunter's attorney. I had talked to the attorney twice, but he wasn't really taking me seriously. But when my husband said, I'm going into court in 30 minutes, if this isn't down, I am fed up with this crap, then literally it was down in 30 minutes. But then there are all these other victims. And now I've talked to tons of other victims, and I have to help them. And this is a big cause now. And my husband and daughter wanted me to stop, but I can't stop. I'm not going to just like forget about all these other people and about this really important issue. So then I had to keep working to get everything, taken care of.
Hopefully your husband did this pro bono for you. No, I'm kidding.
He charged me a fortune, actually.
Yeah, Charlie.
Come on, honey. Please. It's funny because you mentioned you almost started calling the mother, and I'm wondering if that would have done any good. You know what? Here's what I think about this: the parents are culpable. They are responsible at a certain level. And I think they are in mass shootings when they involve juveniles. I really do. I mean, as a parent, you cannot have your head in the clouds that much. You can't. And I think if they started cracking down on parents a little bit, like even in the documentary, whenever Hunter got arrested, whenever anything happened, he'd get bailed out of jail and go straight to mommy and daddy's house, or they'd pick him up at jail. I mean, I'm not, the mother probably would have hung up on you. Hunter Moore's mother might have just hung up on you, Charlotte. But what's your thought of this? What kind of a parent raises a kid that gets away with this? And I know he was an adult at some point too, but my God, when you see how he's intentionally trying to ruin lives, how does a parent not step in? It had to disgust you.
Yeah, I mean, he was living at home, at his parents' house. And when I tried to get in touch with her, I actually found her previous workplace. She wasn't working anymore, but I found her colleagues, and I told them all about this. And they were like huddled around the phone going, oh my God, tell us more about this. So it was kind of, I could picture this very funny scene. And it got back to Hunter because he posted on Twitter, somebody just called my mother's former workplace. She thinks it's really funny. Now, I don't know that she thought that was really funny, but I don't know anything about the parents. I met them a couple of times, or I saw them in court a couple of times, but I never had a conversation with them. So I really can't judge what they did or didn't do.
Well, who's to say or not if they're getting kickback too? Who's to say that if he's making all this money, he's not saying, "Hey, I'm taking care of my parents"? I mean, I don't know.
Right?
Yeah.
Mommy and daddy getting rich off it.
Who knows? So
The truth is, he did not make that much money off of this. That is actually not true. He always made it sound like he was making a lot of money, but we had people in the advertising industry were looking at his ads, and they were saying he's not making more than like $3,000 a month tops. He was not making a ton of money. He liked the internet fame. He liked being the hero and having all these people doing anything for him that he wanted them to do. He would tell people who worked at fast food restaurants to pee on the food and send a picture, and people did all sorts of really disgusting things. Lick the toilet, send us a nude picture of your parents. I mean, he would try to get his followers to do all these things, and he was like thought of himself as a king. That's what it was about. It was an ego thing. It was not a money thing.
Right. And well, then isn't that part of the trial though, that he has to prove assets? In the case, it's a federal case, so they would have the exact numbers.
Had to pay. He never paid any money whatsoever. And he does have a lawsuit against him by somebody. I think it was for $200,000 or $300,000. He's never paid it. He never even showed up in court for it.
Of course,
he doesn't care. He does not have assets, in my opinion.
Well, he's a total coward.
I've been told by an interviewer actually had to was going to fly him to Florida or something to do an interview. And he said he didn't have the money for a plane ticket to go do the interview. So the interviewer was going to give him, a plane ticket. So. I don't think Hunter Moore has any money at all. I really don't.
No, it was a smokescreen. It was a house of cards because, what kind of advertiser are you going to attract when you have that sort of content? No one wants to be involved in that. He wasn't making any money. Now, he had the illusion that he was. He'd throw these parties and make it seem like it was like this crazy time around him all the time. But $3,000 a month, he was spending way more than that. Plus, he had to pay his hacker, right? And he was really good at being a megalomaniac and being a psycho and being a creep and a low-life loser. One thing he's not good at, national television interviews, because Anderson Cooper, that just started his downfall, and he was exposed on that show. And he thought that he'd be able to pull his little spiel and weave his little magic like he's in his parents' basement again. And boy, did he get exposed, humiliated, and even his followers started doubting him at that point. That was the beginning of the end, right, Charlotte? Isn't that when that house of cards started crumbling for him?
Yeah, I mean, the FBI, I started an FBI investigation and I was really happy they took the case. But I think that one reason they took the case was because of his high, that he was high profile. And I think the FBI thought, we got to take this guy down. Plus, I had, victims from all over the country. So I had a lot of phone numbers and contact information I was able to give the FBI. But I do think that him becoming so big was a very big part of his downfall. I agree with you.
Yeah, I also think that a big part, as big as what Tom had said, it was when you get anonymous involved. When anonymous can shut, when it has that much, whoever that is, how they can shut things down, and how people that
Yeah.
respect anonymous, he took over.
It was amazing. And Charlotte, Adonis is a hero of this story as well. As is the guy that bought the website and shut it
Definitely.
down. But Cradle, you made a great point. When an anonymous doesn't come quietly, we're coming after you. It's over. You're done. and it's just chilling in an exciting way to see the power they have. And by the next day, they had erased his existence.
I was going to say, we don't know who Anonymous is, but
That's the whole idea, right? I mean,
exactly.
they're lurking behind the shadows.
How do they get his bank? Every record, everything was shut down.
Yeah, they took the money out of his
Social
account.
Security, everything. He couldn't, no passport. I mean, it's scary actually, but they did it for something good. They did it for something good. Did you know that was going to happen? Were you did you know
Well,
that they're
they
going
had-
to take care of you?
When I was being attacked, there was a bunch of, when Hunter he took his site down briefly and then he was going to bring it back with all the same content, except he said he was going to make it worse because he was going to put home addresses of victims with driving directions on how to get to their houses. And that's and I got a lot of backlash from his followers at that point because I put his home address on Twitter. So his followers freaked out. And so I was getting attacked a lot. And then I got this contacted by anonymous who said, don't worry, we're going to protect you. And I didn't know if they were for real. I was hoping they were, but I didn't know for sure. They said, we're going after him tomorrow. And so I thought, gosh, I hope that's true because that would be great. And they did. And he became very quiet after that because he was definitely scared of anonymous.
When you got the message from Anonymous, did you even know who that was? And did you reply to that? Or did you find out the next day, like, well, this Anonymous thing is real?
Charlotte replied
No,
anonymously.
I got a message on Twitter and then they phoned me. I had a phone conversation for a very long time with this guy, and he helped me like set up so that I could protect myself and my computer, and he gave me all this advice. And so, yeah, I had a very long conversation with them, and I've known who they are for a long time now. I mean, I do know who the people were who helped me. It's just I don't want to go public with it because I don't want them to get in trouble.
No, don't do it.
No.
But,
and by the way, that's good to have Anonymous as your friend.
Hey, when they were talking to you, did they have the gurgled voices, the disguised voice? Was it kind of eerie talking to them, or are they real human beings when they're communicating with you?
It was real, and it was. I'm pretty sure it was their real voice. The person who called, this guy named Jack. That was.
When you put them up there, it's amazing you can get away with it for a week. He got away with it for years. What kind of relief was there for you knowing he went to jail? Have you heard? Has he come out the same creep that he was, or has he changed?
Apparently, he's the same creep that he was. He is on various social media sites. I have not really followed what he's doing. I really don't care about what he's doing. He's not doing the revenge porn anymore, to my knowledge, but he makes racist comments. He makes sexist comments. He does a lot of abusive things. I think he posts nude pictures, but only consensual ones, I believe. And, he's still trying to build up his followers. He has not changed. But when he went to prison, it wasn't really like prison. It was more like a summer camp. And so he was there with other guys, other so-called inmates, and they could go to the store unsupervised and get a sandwich and come back. And it was not a high security thing at all. It was really more like a summer camp, as far as I've been told.
Great.
Where was that?
I think it's the same guy. It was in Texas.
Texas,
is where
okay.
it was located.
Well, and today, just another point is, how is your daughter doing today, Kayla?
She's doing much better, and she got married a year ago, and she's having her first baby in 2 weeks. Yay!
Exciting.
So that's
Grandma.
very exciting.
All right.
I don't know if you know
Yes,
this.
I'll be a grandma.
I don't know if you know this, but DoorDash has free delivery. I'm kidding. Tell her. I get one corny joke a show. Charlotte.
And then he does 4 more.
Yeah, later.
But that's the charm. That's the beauty. By the way, now we're going to get to a different part of your life, Charlotte, and it's fascinating. And it was you made a name for yourself as a party crasher in Hollywood, in other parts of the country, and you wrote a book on it, and it's fascinating. But here's what I think is the coolest part. Okay, number one, and if we can talk about it. I hope we can. But because you wrote about it in your memoir, but your first relationship, you had a 3-year relationship with Tom Jones when you were 18 or 19 years old. I find this utterly fascinating. How do you meet Tom Jones? And I guess it would be easy to fall to his charms. I mean, he's a very cool dude, a great singer. How did it happen? You were living in Atlanta, before you had moved to LA, or when did it happen?
I'd been living in Atlanta, and I lived there my whole childhood, and I was interested in him since I was 9 years old. I mean, I read articles, and I would look at every interview he did, and I was interested, I thought, and I never had high self-esteem. I thought I was ugly and fat and stupid, and I just had low self-esteem. And then I read an article where Tom said his favorite performer was Jerry Lee Lewis, who I didn't even know who Jerry Lee Lewis was, but he was doing a concert in Atlanta. So I went to this concert. I had to crash it because it was sold out. So I got in and I sat ringside. And when the show was over, this man came up and said, "Would you like to meet Jerry Lee Lewis? I'd like to take you backstage." I said, "Sure, whatever." So I met him very briefly, and then I went back out. He had to change clothes or something. So I left the dressing room and went back to the audience area and sat there. And this man came out and sat next to me and said, "Mr. Lewis would like to be in your company this evening." And I said, "Well, I don't want to go out with him. Thanks anyway." And then he said, "Well, who would you want to go out with?" And he went through this long list of the hot guys of the day, like, Robert Redford or John Travolta. And I was like, no.
What's your age, by the way? I have to cut. What's your age so I can?
I'm 63.
Okay.
So these are
No. In the when in the story.
Oh, when it happened.
Yeah.
I was I was like 17.
Okay, that's important for the story. Okay.
Yeah. So I was underage when Jerry Lee wanted to go out with me. So anyway, this guy, this friend of Jerry Lee's said, "Who would you want to go out with?" And I said, "Well, I'd love to go out with Tom Jones." He goes, "Well, you could do it. You're beautiful. You have a great personality." I mean, he totally boosted my self-esteem. It was like the inciting incident of my life. And I was like, "I'm going to do it." And I gave him a hug and I started running out of the theater. He goes, "Wait, don't you want to go back and see Jerry Lee?" I said, "No, I'm going to get a date with Tom." And I started pursuing it. And I went to Vegas where Tom was performing, and I did all these things to try to get to know him. I did meet him. I got this showgirl outfit I put on. I found out what time he went from his suite to the dressing room, and I just happened to pass him in the hallway, and he flirted with me. I could tell he was interested in me. I got a ringside seat every night. Girls around me were like, "Why does he keep looking at you? Do you know him?" And so the whole trip, I did this for a week. I had met his mother. I got to know all these people around him, but he never asked me out. And the last night I called the dressing room and I said, "I'd like to come backstage." And they hung up on me. His manager hung up on me. So I was in tears. I went back to Atlanta. And then a year later, because persistence is the key to success.
Yep.
A year later, I was in college in Florida, and my friend in the dorm said, "Oh, Tom's performing in Sunrise at Sunrise Musical Theater." So I thought, okay, we're going to try it again. So I called Sunrise Musical Theater. I talked to the manager. I pretended to be the winner of the Miss Georgia pageant. I said, "Charlotte Laws is the winner of the pageant. She'd like ringside seats at the Tom Jones show and an introduction backstage." He said, "Yes, ma'am, no problem." I asked what the best hotel in the area was. They said, "Oh, Executive House." I called Executive House. I said, "I'm with the Tom Jones group. We need an extra room. It needs to be next to Mr. Jones's suite." No problem. And then I went down to the theater. And I got a ringside seat. Tom remembered me. He sent someone out to get me, took me backstage. We had dinner, went to a disco. The next night we had dinner, went to a disco, and then went on for 3 years. And it was literally a Cinderella story for me. It was just amazing.
Unbelievable.
He was just as great in person as I always thought.
And you morphed into a different person because of it. You have the confidence now. You know what to do. You know how to get the attention.
Yeah,
You know how to work the system a little bit. So once that relationship ended, did you keep doing these things kind of as a challenge to yourself because they're fun? Because why not? Because that's where the action is. I want to get behind that velvet rope. What made you do this? So you met every single star of the day. Madonna, Ronald Reagan you hung out with, Sly Stallone, Tom Selleck, you name it.
I'm interested in finding out if Jerry Lee Lewis wanted to take you to Chuck E. Cheese. Like, what's Jerry Lee doing? He's a meeting. No, but with the Madonna and Ronald Reagan, yeah, this is incredible.
I had a really negative childhood. I was adopted, and I had a very, very tragic family life. And so I didn't really feel that I had a family, and it was a very racist society. So I was attacked for being, supporting civil rights. I was constantly like an outsider in my own family and in the whole society I lived in. So the thing that saved me was the television and the entertainment industry. And I could see they were open-minded, and they didn't have this prejudice. And so I was very drawn to it. And the entertainment industry is like one big family. So it was like, it became my substitute family. So it was like, yeah, I would go and meet these people and hang out. It was fun. These people were accepting. They were nice to me. They were gregarious. They didn't judge me. There were people of different races, and there was just no prejudice. And so I became very drawn to it. And so I did, start doing that for fun as a hobby. As I got older, I started doing it because I wanted to push for legislation, or I wanted to get interviews with certain celebrities, or I wanted to get donations to a particular cause. There were reasons why I did it. I didn't just do it because I got sick of doing it for fun after I got to be, say, 24 years old. I didn't really do it that much anymore, except when I had a reason to do it. And so I do sometimes still do it if I think, I need to interview some celebrities. Well, if you go to an award show like the Academy Awards or the Grammys, you can go from person to person getting interviews, which is a lot easier than calling a publicist and trying to set up an interview with one person. That's a huge hassle. So, yeah.
Yeah, Charlotte. So a guy like Kato, he gets invited to every one of these parties. He's been to every big party in the last 30 years in L.A.
I have, but that's why I keep going. Have I met Charlotte?
But you know what? You guys want to hear
You never stalked me. Damn.
Charlotte, you want to hear...
I don't get invited. I never get invited. I have to crash.
Yeah. Hey, Charlotte, do you want to hear mine? I have two really good breaking in stories. One, crashing. One was at the 1993 NBA All-Star Game when Prince was performing at Paisley Park for all the big wigs. And I'm not going to tell you that story today, but let me tell you my first one. You ready? Rate this on a scale of 1 to 10. The Charlotte Laws world of party crashing. Tell me how this one ranks. And it has something to do with Milwaukee. Okay, so this is 1989. I'm going into my senior year of college. I was a football player. I grew up in Minnesota, so I'm living in Minnesota. I lived in Minneapolis in the summer, and then was heading back to college shortly for my senior year. But I was going into TV. I was going to be a sports anchor. I already knew it back then. So I was all, that's all I cared about. That's all I thought about. So that summer, I thought I had a good friend who was a big-time broadcaster later on as well, who played football in Nebraska. And we were really good friends because we dated girls who were roommates at the University of Nebraska on the track team. So I'm just giving you the backstory. So he's he's already in TV, working in Omaha. I'm going into my senior year in high school. I go, let's go to New York, and let's go to Atlanta, and let's go to Bristol, Connecticut. We're going to go meet everybody at NBC. We'll go meet them at CNN. We'll go to ESPN. We'll meet everybody. Okay, sure. All right, let's do it. So I planned everything, booked all the trips. We started in New York. We go to New York. Now, listen to this. The whole goal was to meet Brian Gumbel because we loved Brian Gumbel. We thought he was the host of the Today Show. If we can meet Brian Gumbel, he's going to launch our broadcasting career. This is going to be amazing. So we ended up we snuck into Yankee Stadium. Oh, no, I used my media pass from KUOP radio, and then we got on the field, and then my friend had a tank top on, and we got kicked off the field because George Steinbrenner saw him on the field watching from his box, and he said, get that clown and his friend off the field. You can't have a tank top on the field. So then we got our pictures with Bob Uecker. They were playing the Brewers that day. Wow. I think it was a day that Paul Molitor had his 2500 hit, 2,500, a milestone that day. So Uecker, your buddy, he was super cool.
Molitor, your buddy, Minnesota.
Yep. But the whole plan was to meet Bryant Gumbel. So on a Monday morning, we go to NBC Tower, dressed up, ready to roll. And we go, let's go meet a page. Because you know at NBC Tower, right, or at Rockefeller Plaza, you got the page. And then they do the tours of the shows, all the stuff that's in 30 Rock. So we go in there, we meet her, and she's getting mad at us and annoyed. And I'm going, hey, listen, can you come outside with us? We'll just buy you a coat. Can we talk to you? So she comes outside. Okay, I got a quick break. Okay, what do you clowns want? You got to let us in. You let us in. Let us go, like, just roam around. Will you just let us in? She goes, no, why would I do that? Come on, please. And we just badgered her. Finally, she says, all right, I'm working on Friday. Come back around 2:00. There'll be a huge line, but you just come to the side. I'll see you and kind of let you in. Okay, cool. Comes back to Friday. We show up. I have khaki pants on, penny loafers, a button-down shirt, and a tie. My friend had a suit on. We came to play. She sees us. She goes, all right, go. So we go into the elevator. We had free run of 30 Rock, right? We are everywhere. We're running around that building. We were going around the Today Show offices, Saturday Night Live offices. We were outside the Letterman taping, and I remember the group XTC was there. We were meeting all those guys, blah, blah, blah. Finally, we're getting harassed. We're getting harassed by security. And they go, hey, you guys, we knew our time was short. So we walk by this closet. I opened it up, and it's filled up with blue blazers for NBC pages. I found one that fit me, double-breasted NBC thing right here. Then whenever we got stopped, I said, oh, yeah, no problem. I said, this is he's from the O&O in Denver, and I'm giving him a tour, right? So we're just walking around. But we had to get to Gumbel's office. So we finally get to Gumbel's office in the Today Show. We get to the Today Show office. They're completely dark. We go on the weather map. We're like Willard Scott. We're taking pictures in front of the weather map. I remember we were in one of the offices, and I heard this loud crunching noise. It was I'm going, what the hell is that? We look forward. There's this dude just macking on popcorn really loud. He turns around. He had grease all over his face. It was Al Roker. He goes, hey, buddy, hey, guys, want some? He couldn't have been nicer, right? So there's an end to this story. So we keep walking around, but it's good. Okay.
Charlotte said you got to be home by Sunday.
Charlotte, let me get to the end of this. We see Jane Pauley's office, blah, blah, blah. Finally, we see this cleaning lady pushing a cart around. And I go, hey, do you know where Brian Gumbel's office is? She didn't even speak English. Who? Brian Gumbel, host Today Show. No understand, no comprende, blah, blah, blah. I go, him. There's a picture of him on the wall. She goes, oh, him. I see him go back here. So she finally, she did speak English. She takes us to the thing, and we go, cool. I was going to get my resume and my tape. I was going to leave it by the thing, and I was going to slide it under the door. She takes out her keys, opens up the door. She goes, here you go. We go in the office. First thing we're doing, my friend's putting on his cowboy hat. I go to his desk. I'm putting up my feet on his desk, taking pictures. I have the pictures, by the way. Feet up on his desk, taking pictures. We hear a key go into the lock. We go, holy crap. Our career's over before it started. Here's Gumbel. And it's her. And she goes, oh, you're still here? I come back later. We got to go. Let me get to the end. I take a couple business cards and some NBC notepads and a pen. As we're flying back to Minneapolis from Atlanta on Delta through Cincinnati, I go, hey, let's sit in first class and see what happens, right? Which is back then, you try that. We sit in first class on the flight to Cincinnati, and first class starts filling up. Finally, the flight attendant says, hey, where's your flight? Where's your boarding pass? Blah, blah, blah. Go. So we had to do the walk of shame to the back of the plane. So from Cincinnati, we try the same thing. First class starts filling up. We get drinks, the whole thing. Same thing happens. Needs to see your boarding pass. As she does that, my friend who was sitting at the window, I was in the aisle, hands me something, reaches into his fanny pack. I hand it to her. She goes, oh, I'm so sorry. I'll take care of this right away. I handed her Brian Gumbel's card, and she thought my friend was Brian Gumbel. He was light-skinned African-American. She literally thought he was Brian Gumbel for a second. We're in the flight for an hour. He's signing autographs as Brian Gumbel. All right, they're coming back. We're getting the royal treatment. Finally, an hour into the flight, she comes back to us, and she says, that is not Brian Gumbel. I mean, what are you talking about? I got the card. By that point, I put the notes on. I had NBC. Actually, what are you talking about? She makes me go to the front of the plane, puts out the plane manifest. His name's not on that, right? Bottom line, and by the way, Brian Gumbel's wife used to be a flight attendant for Delta, and we were on Delta. So, but we were able to fly. I was able to convince her, and we flew the rest of the way, first class, disguised as Brian Gumbel by just using his card. So it can happen. This stuff can happen. Now there's TSA and there's other things that you can't get away with it. But we did break into Brian Gumbel's office. I have the pictures to prove it. I have my feet on his desk. Someday I'm going to tell Brian that story.
I think
it reminds me of the story when I wanted to meet Oprah Winfrey to give her a copy of my book so that it would maybe go on to her book club. And it's very hard to get to Oprah. And even her website says if you send a book, it goes in the trash. So I had to figure out a way to get to her. And in 2018, it was very hard. It was the hardest thing I've ever crashed was the Golden Globes at the Beverly Hilton because they had it barricades like, 2 blocks away from the hotel. You couldn't even get to the hotel. And I had to go through like a construction zone next to the hotel. I was able to get over to the construction zone, go through tractors and mud and all this stuff, get up to the building. And then I pretended I had already been in, and I got to get in, sit in the front. I said, Ridley Scott said, "Oh, you can sit here. It's an empty seat." I sat next to him and next to Christopher Plummer, across from Natalie Portman. Oprah Winfrey was at the next table. I was able to give her my book and give treatments to a couple other people, including Angelina Jolie and Reese Witherspoon, etc., on different projects. So, yeah, I mean,
Love it.
sometimes you just get one person in your head and you say, okay, I got to figure out how I'm going to get this information or whatever it is to that person.
If you're confident, Kato, and you got a story and you look the part, you got to dress the part. You got to be ready.
Did anything happen with those treatments? Did anything happen with the book and the treatments to those people?
There's people looking at it right now. It's
That's
still
amazing.
in process.
And by the way, the Golden Globes was the perfect
Persistence.
party for you to crash because everybody's half liquored up anyway. I mean, that was perfect. Great idea. Hey, by the way, so she's got the book, Rebel in High Heels. You even schmoozed your way to meet with the publishers, didn't you?
I did, actually. I went to New York with no appointments. And I figured that during lunch hour, all the underlings would come downstairs to go to lunch. And so what I would do is befriend the underlings and then get them to take me upstairs and introduce me to the big shot editors. And I did that at 3 different publishing houses. And eventually I was able to get a publisher for the book. So yeah, you can crash in any way. I mean, it could be not only getting first class on a plane, but it can be to, meet your brother and sister, because I tracked down my birth parents and my brother and sister. It can be crashing for whatever purpose you want to crash for. So,
Okay,
not
I
just
got
for
to,
celebrities.
Kato, I got to put her on the spot. Okay, here's just some of the celebrities you've been photographed with, hung out with back in your afterlife or your previous life when you were, crashing these parties. Madonna, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Michael Jackson, Tom Selleck, Jay Leno, Stallone, Ronald Reagan, Robin Williams, Frank Sinatra. Who was the biggest jerk of that list? There had to be one.
I don't think, I don't know. I couldn't say any of them were jerks.
All
everybody
right.
was
I think
pretty
it's
nice.
because you're attractive
I'm
and
not
all
trying
that.
to be politically.
No, you're attractive, and
I'm
I think
not trying
that's
to be-
probably part of it too.
Yeah,
You're
for
attractive,
sure. Of
and
course, they're not going to be a jerk to her.
But
I mean-
I had a friend who was like very, very heavy. He was probably 300 pounds. He was afraid of water, so he never took showers. He smelled horrible. He was extremely poor. He wore like a purple velvet tuxedo. He got into everything. He knew every celebrity. It was crazy.
what's his
That's
name?
how I got the inspiration. His name was Larry Leverett.
oh, I thought you were
That's
saying.
how I got the-
I thought you were going to say Barney, wearing
Yeah,
the
but
purple
that's how I
suit.
got the inspiration to write the book, because I thought if Larry can get into all these things
Right.
and know all these people and they know him by name,
With
anybody can do
With
it.
that impressive list that Tom just read to you, did anybody in that list ever say to you, "Aren't you Tom Jones' ex-girlfriend?"
No. It's funny. My Michael Jackson, I met him a couple of times, but the last time I saw him was at a camera shop in LA. In fact, it was in the Studio City area, and I looked horrible that day. I had on like tacky shorts and dirty hair, and I looked horrible. And I'm
Sam's
in this camera shop to get my pictures that were being developed, right? Because this was before cell phone situation. And he walks in, and I was like too embarrassed, and he's like trying to get me to look at him, and I was just like trying to avoid him because I looked so horrible. And finally he said, "You look like this girl," because there were like pictures in this on the counter, like a glass counter thing, and I thought she looked horrible. I go, no, this is not what I really look like. And then when the cashier gave me my photos, I tore open the package. I took out a picture of myself dressed up in the evening. I said, "No, this is what I really look like. This is not what I look like."
Right on.
And I just like, and
That's
I left.
classic.
That was
That's
my Michael
classic.
Jackson situation.
Michael Jackson went to a camera store. I find that unbelievable. I think that's a great
know,
story.
I know.
Hey, by the way, were your future husbands' relationships, were they cool with some of these stories from the past? A lot of guys would be insecure, wouldn't want to know that you dated Tom Jones or did some of this. Or was that a problem?
There were a lot of guys who were intimidated about Tom. My husband is a very confident guy, so he never had a problem with it. And the guys that I dated, I only dated a few people because I'm very picky and it's hard for me to find anybody I like. But the guys I dated actually were cool with it. They were all confident in themselves enough to be okay with it. But I did meet guys who were intimidated for sure.
She's a lady. Tom, take it.
It's not unusual to be
loved by anybody. Take it,
crashed
Charlotte.
backstage by Charlotte. All right, Charlotte, this was awesome. I think we covered a lot of ground. Let's get a couple plugs in. Your book, can people buy it or is it sold out? Can they get it online? Can they still get it?
Well, you can get my 2 memoirs,
Okay.
Undercover Debutante and Rebel in High Heels, and they're different parts of my life. So it's not the same story. It's completely different aspects of my life. And there's a lot of party crashing in those books. And then my first book, Meet the Stars, is actually out of print. So you can't actually buy that anymore. And the publisher hasn't reissued it. And I don't even know if they are still in business doing that. So.
And then I recommend binging The Most Hated Man on the Internet, Hunter Moore, taken down by the badass crusader, the worst person he could have run into. Right. His life was destroyed because of her. Charlotte Laws. Great job, Charlotte. We commend you. Amazing. Through all the adversity, through all the threats and everything, you fought on and you won.
Persistence,
awesome.
persistence.
Yep. And thank you.
That's right.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Charlotte, you're terrific. And these other stories that relate to you are just, I'm a fan. Of you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. That was fun.
Okay, come down here and say hi. Come to the studio sometime. We'll tell some more stories. We'll hear some more. All right, Charlotte. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Well, that's a good way to start the new year, 2024. Great guest. That was exciting. You know, Kato, I watched that thing. I was binging. Shonda was gone. She was out with Dash. Ivana was somewhere. So I thought, I got a few minutes. I started watching it, and it sucked me in. Holy crap. I mean, the title sucks you in. And then I watched all 3 that night, and I said, I just hooked. I DM'd her on Twitter.
Yeah, I
on X and got her lined up.
And it's the site was called, Is Anyone Up?
Yeah.
Yeah, Is Anyone Up? And it's amazing. And I don't remember that, but when I watched it, it's like, you're right. You have to watch episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. You just have to. And I wonder, after talking to, and she was terrific, by the way, I wonder if Tom Jones is performing anywhere this New Year's.
I bet he is. I love Tom Jones.
So do I.
I really do.
I do
he's just the consummate entertainer.
Still
the
got
fact, 18 years old, and she worked her way backstage to be Tom Jones and have a relationship with. That is persistence personified.
Yep.
All right. Okay. So watch this doc that Charlotte was in, and watch another one, Bad Surgeon, because we have the star of that one coming up next week. Benita Alexander going to be joining us for next week's episode. So a lot of good stuff. 2024 off with a bang.
Love it.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Subscribe to us for if you did it in 2023. Tell your friends for 2024. 1 Degree of Scandalous.
Yep.
Subscribe. YouTube. Easy.
Subscribe on the YouTube. Give us some comments. We always respond to them. And share it with some friends, too. So thanks, everybody. Hope everybody had a good, safe New Year. For Kato Kalin, I'm Tom Zenner. Thanks for watching.